Hey everybody, it's Kathy Bosco from Rethink.fm, the forward-thinking podcast about experience design. Join me and special guests to discuss effective design, technology, and the intersection of helping people and entrepreneurship. From user experience research to product roadmaps, we've got you covered. We've all got questions, so let's get started. Today, my special guests are Rachel Maron and Sabino Marquez. They've developed a proprietary trust coherence algorithm. It's a formal, repeatable method for converting fragmented, risk-laden information environments into auditable, market-ready trust capital. You won't want to miss this conversation. Welcome, Rachel and Sabino. I'm so glad to share this time with you. I occasionally get to speak with you. I shouldn't keep that all to myself. We should share that conversation with the rest of the world. Just to kick things off, maybe Rachel, you could tell us a little bit about yourself, your team, your work, and introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Rachel Maron. I am the co-founder and chief executive officer of Trust Value Management, and I am the creator of the architect of the system that we use to operationalize trust, transform trust from kind of this vague virtue into a system of measurable, scalable action. Over the course of my, let's call it 30 plus years in business process outsourcing, customer experience, and systems design, we've kind of been working on this idea for what feels like decades. Sabino and I have shared a long time together. He is my probably my longest living relationship outside of family. So we've been together a long time.
Yeah, you're doing
As
really important, immersive work, and we'll get into the details of that. Sabino, introduce yourself for us.
Hi, my name is Sabino Marquez. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder of Trustable. Trustable.tv is where you can find us. I'm the inventor of the Trust Coherence Algorithm, the stack of math that allows us to model trustworthiness as a predictive financial asset that allows go-to-market and product teams to plan for trust buyers. It corrects drift in every model we apply it to. And it expresses itself through a changing of the mind. There's nothing to buy. You just change your mind. You apply a work method, and the work method then delivers these results. So we have been. It's true. We have been developing this for what feels like 30 years because it's 30 years of observation and watching the machine work and deliver its outcomes, and then wondering if there are better mousetraps, if there are rounder wheels, and if there are, who are we to innovate? And it turns out that when you disregard whether or not you should innovate and start innovating to solve the problem, you can actually solve tremendous problems that have existed for decades and just no one thought to solve yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're one in the long line of many business systems architects that find a persistent problem and say, "Hey, does anyone else see this? Why hasn't this been solved yet?" And so we've been banging at this now for almost a year, and we're ready. We're ready to share it with people.
It's an incredible opportunity as we go through this experimental phase and transitionary time with AI as well. I mean, trust could never have been
Yeah.
more important or powerful. And Rachel, I've been following you on Substack and reading your articles, and your writing is so crisp. And there's such clarity in the work that you're sharing with everyone, on top of the models and the program that you've delivered. Is your voice is very important. And I love one of the things that you had in your recent article about UX as a moral infrastructure. If trust is the currency of modern interaction, then UX is the mint. Boy, do
Yes.
UXers need to hear that today.
Yes, you know, I I see Substack as sort of frequently an outlet for what can sometimes feel like radical opinions, right? Sometimes I'm putting stuff out there, and there are moments, Sabino and I were talking, where I'm like, who the hell do I think I am? Like I'm just someone who has been observing these things for literal decades.
Yeah.
In the early stages of my career in the 90s, I was very focused on UX because I was working on e-commerce, and we were doing cool and interesting things on the internet, and Sabino and I just regularly hash through what biases do we have, and there's a sort of a level of almost forced introspection where we're picking through these things, and we'll discover something that we've been carting around with us for a long time, like a long time. We both had a really funny revelation this week about, as founders, going out and thinking about gaining investors, and do we want to do investors? Do we want to just be self-funded? How does this all need to work as when you're founding a new company? And we both discovered that we're both fairly anti-investor, just because our experience with investors has been flavored, if you will, by our experience of working in e-commerce in the 90s and up through even today, and some of the things that we've seen to date. So UX, founding, AI, trust, it all is connected, and all of it can be directly driven down to the sort of the emotional supply chain that we talk a lot about.
Let's talk about that emotional supply chain. It's a great title of something, but what it really describes is a split
Well,
experience, right? Like how you do
yes,
something and how
yes,
it makes you feel while you're doing it. Am I
yes,
Right.
getting it?
yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the genesis of this idea, and it began with observations I started making about 15 years ago. You know me, I build and run security teams and trust teams in general. And a lot of times I'll get pulled into a particular deal with a very security conscious customer who needed answers before they were going to buy. And it wasn't just compliance answers, it was capability answers. Essentially, they were looking for an answer to the question, am I safe with you? Is my value safe with you? If I turn my back on you, will my value continue to be safe, or do I have to follow up on you to make sure that you're always keeping my safety at the center of your model? What is at the center of your model? Are you at the center of your model, or am I at the center of your model? Whose journey are we accelerating here, mine or yours? Like, these are the types of questions that aren't really questions you solve with audits. These are feelings. These are feelings that you inspire from the signals your company pulls out. And so we found that, this is 15 years ago, that a customer would ask for, let's say, a SOC 2 report. Everybody asks for a SOC 2 report. And there's some companies out there that allow you to get a SOC 2 report for like $8,000. You go to a website, you upload a bunch of documents, a auditor somewhere will write a report, and then you get a checkbox report that allows you to turn it in and check a box. Now, I'm a trust buyer. I don't care about your widget, Kathy. I'm not a user of your widget. I own the relationship between the company that sells the widget and the company that buys the widget. I'm a lawyer. I'm a CISO. I'm a procurement. I'm a privacy. I'm somebody who wants to know if the value is going to be safe, if my reputation is going to be safe. I'm letting my marketer buy your software, but what I want to know is, are you going to get breached? Are you going to pay? Will your insurance pay out when you do get breached? Why is this contract looking like it's trying to screw me? Hey, what kind of business are you running? These are the types of things that are emotional signals. And so you would put a SOC 2 from a $7,000 provider, and you would put, a big four from one of the big brand names in front. And they both check the box. They both were defect free. They both said that the company was safe, but one company spent 10 times more on that report than the other one, which tells me the signal that sends me is that this company cares a little more about safety than this company. When presented with the opportunity to prove safety, value safety to the customer, they chose the lowest possible way to accomplish that goal rather than to actually assure the customer and the stakeholder in general with the safety that they're craving as part of the relationship. So that meant that a piece of data that perfectly tells a technical story fails the emotional story. And then we started to see that when buyers were evaluating your company, evaluating your product, yes, your blinking lights did the thing, great. So did everybody else's blinking lights that because you're a commodity, like every software is a commodity. But what mattered was that when I used your software, I don't know, there was something about you guys, the way you guys talk to me, the way that your security people gave me 6 times more things than I asked for, and then offered even more. The way that it was just frictionless getting answers from your lawyer. The way that like I've never had such easy procurement. Like your requirements made me feel like I was at the center of this transaction. It didn't even feel like a transaction. You know what it felt like, Kathy? Like a partnership. I feel like when I use your software and I outsource a piece of my company to you, because that's what I'm doing. When I use a SaaS, I outsource a piece of my capability, promises I've made downstream to you. So I want a partner. I don't want someone that waters my plants and changes my coffee filter. Someone who thinks about, and now you're not even in the realm of checkboxes.
Right, right.
Now you're not. Now you're broadcasting. The signals you're broadcasting form a supply chain of emotion
Right,
that
right.
that moves the stakeholder through their value journey, and their value journey doesn't move parallel to you, it moves through you. And it turns out, and here's the big reveal, the big tada. When you focus on accelerating the stakeholder's value journey, your value journey accelerates more quickly than if you attempt to extract value from the stakeholder.
And that's
So
exactly the same thing on the UX side. When you start looking at UX, whether that UX is a simple e-commerce transaction or that UX is the system that your contact center is using to interface with your client, right? All of those signals give off exactly the same message. We didn't
yeah,
pre-check any boxes because we trust you to make your own choices, right? That sort of a lot of that coercive design that happens. Um, and there was a recent study that I saw where they were asking AI to do some UX design, right? And a lot of the stuff came back in what they call the dark UX or the coercive design style because it's everywhere. It's everywhere in and UX and e-commerce and websites
well,
and apps are littered with coercive design. And so part of and those don't give you a comfortable signal. They give you a bit of an ick, right? And
well,
the ick is an indicator that you've lost trust.
Right.
And that's what it all comes back to. When you get ick from a UX, it's because you feel this, your emotional supply chain isn't being respected. And that ick is what gives you that sense where my trust is being
yeah,
disregarded or my.
I would say from a UX research perspective, we know from research studies that in UX, when you're in the flow and you're
Yep.
not getting any icky feelings, no friction, what that feels like to an end user is innovation.
Yes.
yes,
Yes. And it doesn't have to be
yes,
the fastest, right?
Nope.
Like the perception that this site loaded quickly or this app reacted well is wholly based on the fact that I was able to complete my mission, right? So if I went through the system, it was smooth. I didn't have to struggle. Like my threshold for frustration is like a negative 37. Like I will exit an app or poor UX so quickly and never return. Never, right? So for me, it's something that I'm just like super hyper
yeah,
sensitive to. I want to make
yeah.
sure that um every single piece of the transaction feels good, that I got what I expected. I wasn't surprised by anything that was unpleasant anyway. I could be delighted by something, but not necessarily surprised by, oh, there's a $300 shipping charge or something silly like that.
Right, right.
Yeah, there. That's right. There's a certain threshold in UX that there is in security, which is if you feel yourself being secured, you did security wrong. Security should be invisible
Right.
to anybody you do it to. Once you notice that the UX disrespects you, you develop emotions about the experience.
Yeah.
So we're cognizant that that line exists, and that line appears to be a one-way line that then requires 10 times the effort to untie the knot once they feel against. Because from our perspective, we're kind of doing this effective affinity management where we're always trying to get the customer to feel for rather than feel against. And that only happens when you're cognizant of the emotional signals that your evidence, your perfectly valid evidence that checks boxes, pushes off. Your perfectly functional UX that allows the user to click the thing still doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
So um, a lot of professions are what Rachel and I like to call emotionally constipated. That the profession trains you to discard emotional signal and tells you emotional signal is an unprofessional input, that you should only stick to these modelable, unemotional, binary, or at least spectrum countable metrics. And yes, you can do that, but you're going to create a lot of trust friction when you don't account for the emotional supply chain, because the micro inefficiencies, the micro frictions that arise every time a human being hesitates about their safety add up, and they end up being counted on the CFO's ledger as slower deal velocity, as churn, as lower LTV, as like a higher CAC. All, the, all that all rolls up, and all of these other models, the CMO's model, the CRO's model, aren't quite accurate enough to see it because they don't include the trust persona archetypes in their planning and in their model. The CPO may not understand that there are non-widget using users that you have to include in your planning, because otherwise the champion that loves the widget won't be around, because the
Yeah.
people that allow the champion to use the widget are going to say, no, we're done, we're out.
It's amazing how often organizations leave off how difficult it is to do business with a company. That
Right.
that's not going to
Yeah.
show up in using the widget or the
Yep.
interface, but billing and pricing and packaging and being able to forecast through,
Yeah.
especially when you're working at large enterprise scale.
Yeah, I mean, my last BPO, we had 560,000 employees and we were in 96 countries, and each country was its own financial entity, which meant that if you had your work in
Yeah.
three different countries, you got three different bills. And the idea of that and not being able to simply consolidate, like, what?
What are
What do
we
you
doing to
mean I don't
people?
have a
Yeah.
P&L that I can roll up and roll down? I need all of that. So, yeah. So you see it in startups, you see it in uh giant monolithic organizations, and it just is very, very easy to disregard, and most companies disregard it to
Yeah.
their detriment.
Yeah.
I think we sort of covered my little question I had for you guys about speaking about the short and long-term cost of trust abuse. I think we've sort
Oh,
of been talking about that
Yep.
yeah.
already. Um,
No, and actually, let's refine that idea, because trust abuse is, let's define it, is the delta between the promise and the realization that the promise wasn't met. And in between there, you think you can make your money. Promise, 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 extract, extract, extract. And we're not going to deliver until they ask. And when they do, we're going to deliver at this much. And oh, I'm so sorry. Here's a credit for an extra 3 credits for, and that's become okay. And that's not okay. That's trust destroying behavior.
And
It's
even things like having to be forced into discounting, right? When you
Yeah,
think of large organizations that are working on a pricing structure, this is sort of very classic in the BPO space where um, we turn around and roll out a COLA increase that's at, somewhere between 3.5% and 7%. And then there's a little bit of tension in the renewal, and we throw out a 10% discount.
Yeah,
Like,
no, hold on. Like discounting is the number one thing we solve with our trust product strategy, and it's discounting at the quarterly level. Discounts are necessary when the user doesn't feel you.
right,
You're not managing the emotional supply chain correctly. You're not selling to the trust buyer's heart. You're trying to win them over with PDFs, and PDFs don't move hearts. Stories move hearts, Kathy. So how are you orchestrating all of those PDF evidences that you have into a
right,
story that moves the heart of a lawyer, or the story that moves the heart of a privacy leader or a procurement vulture? Sorry, procurement people. You know, like people who are not here to feel you. But if you make them feel you, you'll stand out amongst all the other undifferentiated competitors,
right.
right?
And stay
Because
out of the pricing game, right?
yeah,
You
because you
you
set a
don't
pricing.
have to be a pricing play.
That's
Right?
right.
It's value.
It's
I'm
value.
making a choice
It's
based on
value.
the value I get rather than
Yes,
a race to the bottom of what's the cheapest.
Right,
that's right.
right.
Because when people feel you, they'll pay you, and when they don't feel you, they hesitate.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know, you have to think about money differently. It's not money isn't just money. Money is a measure of how much they feel you, how easily you can book that sale, the deal velocity, the churn reduction, how early they renew. When we implement trust product, you start to see renewals 5 to 4 months ahead instead of 30 days ahead, right? You start to see faster time to value because not only did the widget user get the value that they were promised from the tool, but also every trust buyer behind them could stand down. No extra audits, no one looking for the insurance, no regulator, no audit. Like all that stuff becomes part of the experience because it's one company experiencing another company, not a customer experiencing a tool. That's the wrong paradigm to think about trust in.
I think I think at organizations, when you work for a company who has that kind of emphasis on trust and integrity, you also attract top talent.
Oh,
absolutely.
You
Uh,
also have no trouble getting the smartest, the brightest, the most dedicated.
yep,
And so you also end up getting referrals and recommendations, both internally and externally, that wouldn't necessarily
yeah.
drive growth
No, the benefits we've
otherwise.
seen are incredible. We've seen customer referrals triple. We've seen affiliate agreements actually be used because now you can with confidence recommend this to another part of your business, knowing that you'll get the credit for delivering the solution, the good vendor, right?
yep,
Amazing.
They stop thinking about you as a quote unquote supplier. You don't supply, you partner and deliver. The language changes, the meaning of it changes. And we're moving into a post-institutional, post-trust proxy world where we're not going to be able to rely so much on contracts or the courts or compliance or even self-attestations because everybody has an incentive to not tell the truth because no one's going to stop you. So in a world where you can't tell the truth from the lie, you can't validate anything, the most trustworthy win because you're still selling to human beings. And
yep.
human beings still need to feel something, right? So at the end
Even
of the
if they
day,
deny the existence of feelings.
yes, like at the end of the day, I'll use the Seth Godin quote: "People don't buy goods and services; they buy stories, relationships, and magic." And
Yeah,
every company is in the magic business. We're in the feelings business. Your widget inspires a feeling of accomplishment, capability, satisfaction, confidence. What are we inspiring today should be the product question, right? As well as what are we enabling today? So on my side, I speak to the people who classically are seen as heartless: CISOs, CIOs, lawyers,
check.
auditors, regulators. You know what I mean? But we're not heartless. We're looking to feel something. I want to feel safe with Kathy's company. I know Rachel loves your widget, Kathy. I know Rachel's super hot to buy the widget, but you know what? We're going to outsource our marketing operations execution to you. And that's very important to us because that's our funnel filler. We have to rely on your company. Will your company be there for your, now it's no longer what widget conversation. And this is how the product leader begins to understand these archetypes as customers. So one of the things that happens is, you know, the classic fight that exists between product engineering and security, where security wants security bugs fixed, and engineering says, I don't have any time because product controls my time. And product says, I can't listen to security bugs because we're in the feature war, Sabino, and we ship features. Well, the missing piece was that there are user personas called trust personas that need work done. Otherwise, they'll take their money. They're gone. And they've never used your widget, but you have to plan for them. You have to serve them. You have to make sure that they're happy so that your user can be happy. So that means that we introduce a new planning rubric called the trust persona, which aligns those three teams. Now there's no more fighting. There's no more security backlog. Now there's just the trust buyer requires this quarter. Let's plan for it in the sprint. It's not security work. It's a customer. It's a customer. They can stop the deal. They have to be satisfied. They're customers. They're not blockers. They're not friction. They're not making demands of. We sold them something, and what we sold them is the safety of their value. We'll keep your value safe, Kathy. And now we got to prove it. And that means that we realign those three teams, security, engineering, and product, around the trustworthy product model, which is we have a trust persona. They're a real user. We must plan and serve them. And if we don't fix these feature issues important to the trust buyer, there's a churn risk. And that churn risk will fall directly on product because we're the ones that determine the priority of what gets worked on. Right?
Yep.
So now we're aligning an actual buyer that existed outside of the model, putting them back in the model, which makes the model more accurate across the board. The product model now has a complete persona archetype to work with, a full map. Engineering now understands security bugs as trust bugs.
Yes, and when you're working in this mental model of prioritizing trust and security, then when things come up for roadmap prioritization on a team, if it's flagged with that, once there's awareness about the impact of it, it gets prioritized.
That's
Right.
it.
It
That's
does.
it.
Oh, that's a
That's it.
security risk? Okay, that's a trust risk? Okay, we got to prioritize this. Without that infrastructure, this work is too easily overlooked.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
But I
because
think you often say trusty roads, Rachel. Well, this is how.
yes, trusty roads.
Trusty roads. And the fact of the matter is that you can build trust today and betray it tomorrow, right? If your methodology doesn't completely support the existence of trust across all of your channels, it's not going to be effective over time, right?
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we've seen in implementing trust in organizations is that when the trust gets pulled out, the degradation and the erosion happens almost immediately. Next quarter, it's going to show up. It's going to show up in your cost customer acquisition. It's going to show up in your ARR. It can be directly tied to real financial metrics, and that's why it becomes so important, regardless of whether trust exists at your UX level or trust is existing at your financial level. It's got to be holistic and engaged in all parts of the business.
It's a feeling in the body, Kathy. Trust is a feeling and that you feel it in the body.
Your gut
You
tells you.
feel it in
I think it's an experience.
Yes.
Right? Like people are using terms like magic and soul and all these
Vibes.
Vibes. No, it's an experience.
Yeah.
It's an aspect of every experience. It's either present or it's not. It's like a cross category of experiences.
Well, hold on. It's not just, yes, it's an experience, but that means that it can be designed. And anything that can be designed is a product. And this is what we mean when we say trust is a product. When we say trust is a product, what we mean is that it's an orchestrated deliverable made up of the sum of evidence of humans keeping you safe.
Yeah, and we can measure it.
all the things that a company does that puts the stakeholders' value and the safety of that value at the center of the model. Every audit, every prioritization decision in product, every HR policy, everything, all of it orchestrated together can be stacked into a narrative, into a story that you can communicate. And it's felt as story, it lands as story. And you structure these stories specifically for every type of trust buyer. The lawyer needs to see and feel a certain way to not just approve the deal, but to champion you the way your widget user champions you. Because trust product activates trust buyers as champions and creates that second line. I'll give you a perfect example. I told the story to Rachel yesterday. I worked for a company a few years ago that was in a competitive SaaS market, marketing performance management, and there were 6 or 7 other serious companies competing in that field. And the customer is the type of customer that likes shiny things. These are CMOs, directors of marketing, directors of demand gen. They want data, they want clean interfaces, they want clarity, they want correctness. And sometimes they want shiny things, better looking reports, a nicer way to do
Nice
integrations,
interface.
nice interface, things like that. So we sell our software in year one. It would deliver on the promise of whatever it was that we promised the widget would do. And then upon renewal, you have a couple of people that say, this other piece of software came out and it's shiny. Kathy, look how shiny it is. And so they'll do a demo and they'll get emotionally attached to the shiny, and that begins that type of buyer journey. Now they'll take that shiny new object and put it on the desk of their Sabino and Rachel. And there's Sabino and Rachel, who just reviewed Allocadia, 8 months ago, and got strong safety vibes from them. Man, they were better than us. I asked them for one document, they sent me 53. And they just keep sending me things like, stop it. Like, okay, I get it. You're safe. Now, why do you want to change, Rachel? And you'll say, oh, I want to change because of the shiny. And I'll say, but does it still does our current solution do the thing? Yes. Is the new solution cheaper? No, not really. So why do you want it? Oh, the shiny. Oh, okay. You want it because of the shiny.
Different
But
flavor,
but
whatever
but
it
is
is.
it safe? And then the Rachels and Beanos of the world will do our what we do, audit due diligence of the other shiny product, and we'll see that it may be shinier, but the company is not a safe partner. And then rather than the widget champion being the one that drives the churn, it's the trust buyer that stops it because it's not worth the safety risk, the risk to safety to allow you to get a shinier toy when the company providing the toy is putting razor blades inside of it. Or is it even checking for razor blades? Even worse. So
Evidence-based decision making.
evidence-based decision making. And people like us are bonus on not letting people like Rachel have her shiny toy. So you see how the incentives play out. Everybody needs to worry about whether things are safe or not. And that means that sometimes you don't get the toys you want. So that means that we have to design with safety in mind, and not just, technical security safety, but the emotion of safety. Is my value safe? Do I feel like this tool respects not just me, but what I'm doing with it and the value I get from it? Like, that is sticky. And that is once you're saturated with that type of emotion, it only takes a couple of months to effectively saturate a customer. And once they saturate, it's difficult to get them to unsaturate in different directions. Our model, funnily enough, our TCA model measures effective saturation in user populations to determine how they feel about you and the capability they get from you and the safety of your company as it relates to their value. Like, this is now something that we model for.
That's great.
Because if you don't model for, how can you deliver a trustworthy product?
That's right. We measure, as UX researchers, we measure attitudinal, behavioral, experiences, and we can set baselines and benchmark them and see how they've changed over time. Why did this go down here? And what did we do? And how can we raise it? So we can monitor and measure these things across both the user experience and the stakeholder understanding and process needs as well. A couple of things came to mind. So is it true that like we all love animals, and we were just talking about Sabino's dog before we started recording, and
Yeah.
it takes a lot of attaboys to correct a break in the trust between you and the dog. It's like, I don't know what the official number is, but I think that
Yeah.
that's true for people.
It's,
Yeah.
I think it's definitely true for people. I think that especially in online environments, especially in um, high emotional fluency environments, right? Like there is a lot of emotional fluency that goes into things like using a chatbot, right? This is a simple back and forth. I need to return something or I need to complete a transaction. I have some additional questions. I'm fine talking to an AI bot. Most users have sort of been trained to talk and feel comfortable with getting that first line of support, right? But the moment I loop, immediately, I
Hmm.
don't trust
hmm
it,
hmm hmm
right?
hmm
Immediately. I had a situation with an organization that was using chatbots for recruiting. And the first part was like this really, really complex conversation with you about your experience in this role, right? And one of the things that I asked was, it asks me a question about my experience or my expertise. And I said, I'd like to be able to cut and paste for my resume. I have 30 years of experience in this market. It's a diatribe, right? And it says absolutely no problem, cut and paste in the box. And then I go to try and cut and paste into the box, and you cannot, in fact, cut and paste in the box. So then I replied to the AI. I was fully aware that I was engaged in a conversation with an AI. And yet, when I asked it if I could cut and paste, it said I could cut and paste, and then find out interface wise, I cannot cut and paste, and I have to hand type everything. I replied with, well, it turns out you can't cut and paste. This is going to take a little time. Give me a few minutes to type everything in and summarize for you. But part of the reason I was doing this is because a friend has designed this system, and so a lot of it was based on the fact that they were looking for feedback on the system. My immediate response was, "This is not something that gives you a feeling that you can trust. Trust that
Yeah.
my information is being interpreted properly, right? Or trust that
I can
I'm
even
going to
be
get good information
successful.
from it." Right? That I'm going
Yeah.
to be successful? Is is this going to be just another ATS that I'm going to drop out of? That none, it was a really interesting experience. And I'm really glad that I wasn't actually looking for a job in this environment, because when you're looking for a job, you're the only one that has a real sense of urgency about getting a job. And so there's so many signals that we
Yeah.
produce on a daily basis that tells people you can trust us, you can't trust us, you can believe us, you should never believe us.
Well,
And
that use of AI rolls up to like the top level, which is responsible use.
right, right,
Responsible use of AI is safety. It's frustration or lack thereof. It's
yeah,
agency. It's confidence and self-respect.
yep,
You can't use it in a way that makes your process easier at the expense of someone else's emotional labor, because emotional labor is immediately visible in the balance sheet. What Every time you offload emotional labor to your customer or
they
stakeholder,
feel
it's
it.
going to show. They feel it and they respond by leaning away,
Yeah.
which makes trust friction appear everywhere. You know what happens in the space between the customer leading away and where they were? That trust friction rolls in. And that's
Yeah.
expensive to remove. It's expensive to deal with. It slows everything down. And further, we're not managing it because no one in your company owns trust. Your lawyer doesn't. Your marketing leader doesn't. No
Your
one
risk
owns it.
manager doesn't.
It
No
doesn't.
one's owning it or measuring it unless it's
Yeah.
actually like a platform going down.
Right. Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's actually been one of my great joys is introducing companies to the idea that trust has cash value and it needs an owner, because if you don't own it, you're going to have all this friction that knock your models off, make them all unpredictable, and now you can't lead, you can't do what leaders do, which is predict the number, deliver the number. It is the core essence of leadership. So if we're serious about accuracy in our planning, accuracy in our predictive models, we want to complete the model by acknowledging that these are buyers and then giving them a product, which is the emotion of safety as delivered through story, which is made of stacked evidence of all of your motions of you and your company doing things to keep people safe.
I love it. We're getting close to time. I'm reminded of a couple of things in my own research. And one is in making decisions about platforms in B2B environments, SaaS environments, for example, there were three things that meant the most to people in this research study. The top one was security, a trust issue.
Yep.
Second to top was reliability and performance of
Yep.
the
Mhm.
experience, also a trust issue.
Trust issue.
Yep.
And number three, without fail, was support. And we touched on that.
Yeah.
And that support aspect is really important. So when you're getting insights from the support team, from the sales team, from the procurement team, from the customers, like trust is a cross category across
Yeah.
the global taxonomy.
Yep.
We
And
call it a substrate. Trust is the nutrient rich soil from which the value can grow. And if you have dead soil, you can't grow much value from dead soil, right?
Yep.
So it's true. It goes under the whole garden.
mhm.
Your kale and your roses all grow from the same dirt.
And like imagine environments where you just don't have the connectivity across all your channels, right? So
Mm.
you've got a product team that has just been working day and night to build this amazing product, and your finance team has put together the numbers and everything looks great, and you've got a sales team that's excited, their go-to-market strategy is fantastic, and then they receive the product at home, and then your customer care team is like, we don't know anything about that. We
Yeah.
know nothing. What is this? What is this? And the biggest failures of my career from a tech and interface perspective have happened in the contact center because I have screwed with an interface or made poor data available. I
Hmm.
haven't done the right thing to support the one channel that has a direct, consistent interaction with my end user. And so you can spend your time and money on a trustable product, and if you don't have trustable support, you wasted a lot of time and money.
Yeah. Trust is a team sport.
Yep,
The
100%.
idea that, oh, the security team keeps us secure. No, they don't. Human beings behaving well keep us secure. You know. Oh, I don't want to follow the policy. Well, what would the customer say if they heard you say that? Would they feel safe? Would they feel like renewing if they knew that you didn't care about their safety? Like this is how we must frame things. Because if we are going to believe that they're customers, then that means everything everybody does in the company can now be visible to the customer,
Yeah.
because we're trying to inspire a positive emotion that sustains the relationship over time, right? And every marketer will tell you can absolutely orchestrate emotion at scale.
Yeah.
So we're not proposing anything radical. We're adopting the tools that have worked for 50 years. The one of my friends called what we do trust ABM, trust account based marketing, where you identify the persona and what will resonate with this persona, and then tell them the story that resonates. And in a way, it's what we're doing, but the story that we tell is the story of people moving. Look at Kathy's team and how they move, and look at how their motion protects you. Sign here, please. When you want to shop our widget against the other widgets, do so. Shop our widget, but also shop our trust product. Go ahead, please. Go see how safe you feel amongst all the other shiny light vendors, and you'll see that they may have nice shiny lights, but you know what? Listen to that feeling in your chest. Pay attention to it. And every single time you tell them to shop trust, they come back and say, you know what? We saw interesting things, but it's not worth it. Let's re-up with you.
Yeah.
So how can people work with you? How can people tap into this this product, this system, your whole program?
They can start by the website. They can, if you go to trustable.tv, you can schedule time on my calendar. There's a link right at the top. If you want to read about what we're talking about, there are articles posted on that site that'll take you into our Substacks to just get sort of more in depth on more philosophical stuff that might kind of push you one direction or another. And that's kind of the best way. And then,
What
you know,
what one of the things I like to do is I like to tell people to use trust personas in their go-to-market planning. Because today, without even talking to us ever again, your CRO, CMO, and CPO can unite on the two trust personas, the trust relationship owner and the operational trust owner, and agree that they're real and that they're customers with material impact to the relationship. They can kill deals or make deals. They can kill renewals. They can slow your expands. All that stuff you care about is not in the champion's hand. It's in the hand of the trust buyer. So if you integrate, if the CRO integrates the trust buyer personas into their go-to-market planning for the quarter, they'll be able to properly model their AE's time in prospecting and also their BDRs. We can have a proper BDR model that takes account of the trust buyer. The CMO would then use the trust personas to model messaging that forward deploys ahead of your sales team that isn't just targeting messaging for the widget user, it's targeting messaging for the trust buyer. We're sending our trust story ahead with product messaging. And then finally, the trust leader, understanding the trust buyer as a user persona that we have to plan product for, can now begin to reinterpret what is called security backlog as trust work. We have these trust buyers that are going to kill the deal if we don't fix it. But more than that, we promise the customer safety. It's part of what we sold is the safety of their value with us. We want to be that reliable partner. We want to be the ones they never leave. We want to have the affect that says lean in.
yeah.
Because that is a forgiving affect. Oh, Kathy, you don't have the shiny widget, that Rachel's software does. Can I put in a feature request? I love working with you guys. I'll wait when it comes from you guys because I feel good and safe with you. Like that's evidence that's evidence that it's working, right?
And likely I care so much, I'm actually putting out a customer facing roadmap so you can see what's coming down the pike.
Right. Right. Transparency. Yes. That's trust.
Buffer.com/open. You want to go see what a trustworthy company looks like? Buffer.com/open. They're an open company. They publish their meeting memos, their salaries, their OpEx, their product, everything. Why wouldn't they? They work for you. You see, here's the thing. SaaS companies, I've been in this for 15, 20 years. SaaS companies forget that we work for the customer, that user-centric design and customer-centric management isn't just a buzzword, it's a way of life. It's like being in a biker gang. You get a patch that says the customer. You know what I mean? Every decision is about them, their safety, their value journey, their affect towards us, their value, and their capability. And the second that you lose that is the second that you start to shift towards damaging extractive strategies, which then try to arbitrage the space, the delta between the promise and them figuring out that they're not going to get the promise.
That's really hard to hold on to when you have investors who need to make money off the money they lend you.
I think this is where we started our anti-investor bias conversation.
I'm not sure it's a bias, but maybe it is.
I think it's just our experiences and having worked with people
hold on. in defense of investors.
Yes.
This is not investors, capital I. This is the hockey stick chaser. These aren't the railroad builders. These aren't the orchard planters. They're not doing med tech, or they're not trying to find a novel molecule. They're not doing R&D. They're trying to find companies that cannibalize as much as they can about themselves so they can then wring the towel all the time, right? And then deliver the hockeys. And that's one kind of investor.
Right.
And there are other kinds of investors that actually have horizons. That actually their thesis is not, I want to get the most I can in the shortest amount of time. It's, I want to own this market in 15 years. I want to leave my children ownership of this percentage of these three sectors. And we're going to invest in a long term. Like, there are investors like that. So like, that was my big aha moment, was that just because my experience with investors have been with the fast paced hockey stick chasing investor, doesn't mean that there don't exist Warren Buffetts, or Melinda Gates's, or McKinsey's of the world, who see a horizon and then look over it to see. There's a company down in the valley called Plenty.ag. They make Costco-sized robotic vertical farms. Their thesis is, in 20 years, food will be really difficult. Dust bowls, climate change, fires, nutrient-depleted soil, climate migrations, lack of water, dogs and cats sleeping together, and they're right. They're right. So their play is, in 20 years, we want to own urban food. Our Costco-sized robot buildings will produce enough food to feed 250,000 people, and you can drop them in places, and then that's the investor horizon. So they've gone through $1 billion in R&D, and they're fine with it because they're looking to own 20 years from now. So that type of investor resonates with us because trust is a long-term transformation. It's a 10-year transformation.
And because it erodes, it needs to be maintained.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the root of it.
Trust erodes and must be maintained.
We should wrap with that thought.
That
is beautiful thought. And it really, I can't thank you both enough for sharing your insights with me and everyone else listening. We'll put links in the show notes to all of the different things we talked about. Thank you, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy.